We're in what, yeah? It's rail day. There's train car right here. There we go, Camera, there we go,
Well, I got my hat tied on my head. Hold on. Good.
Each one of us had one. And I don't suppose it's very expensive, not over a couple of bucks. But we had the handle here, we could carry it by. I had all my possessions in there, which wasn't much, just clothes. No shoes, just a change of clothes. I had the whole future ahead of me and I didn't know what to expect. But I didn't want to stay in the orphanage.
On the journey west, the agents tried to comfort the children. They gave each child a handbag. Slowly, the whole home. Closing the window, the agents sang to the children.
Oh, this is the Union Pacific. So the fight is river at Utah. Wheel. Union Pacific. Cable from there. Only 747. And a 4104. 30 foot tall. 30 foot long. Oh, that's pretty good. 136 foot long. 32 foot tall. Wow. You can go up to here. You cut like that. Yeah. Off of shop directory. And then the Pacific out to here. That is rail gauge. air hoses between cars and electrical cables at the engine. I'm doing specific stuff in here.
We'll just chill on this and last time.
See, I wish I could have done that.
Honestly, I want to say it's on floor 2. I want to say it's on floor 2.
And now on eastbound, westbound.
As far as I know, this is the hump. This is one hump. I assume the other one. Is that here? I'm a little bit confused. This is eastbound.
Management over here.
Do you take all this on the
Three boys, canisters, and motors. Yeah. Or electrical stuff is here.
Probably building.
11,000 turnout.
Sitting there, you're gonna be watching along the street.
Daily yard over here. I think the digging is going to come a while and last. Now,
I guess I can hold that.
and that was going on, you know. I enjoy summer. Half the time, you know. And taking it there every 2 hours, couple hours at daily yard. That's gonna help me a little bit. In my mind. The daily yard, you see all kinds of trains, manifest, intermodal, whole trains, all that train, you name it, you know. Grain trains, you know. Some of these are manifest, some of these are intermodal, you know. It's a hot day today. Hot summer day. I mean, going fight. An old classic train, you call. I head out and go and fight right here. Oh, some of the exhibit. We're about ready to go on a daily yard tour. It's a bus tour, so it'll be a lot of fun. I mean, I love trains so much. I would die for trains, you know. Anyway. Yeah. Video. Yeah. Anyway.
2022 or 2022, however you do it. I got corrected last time for saying 2022 or 2022, but that's okay. Anyhow, welcome to Bailey Yard, the world's largest switch yard / classification yard, bar none. I know there's a lot of speculation at that new yard that they were building for a while down there in Texas, Bezos Yard. They claim it's twice as big as Bailey Yard. Well, in actuality, it's almost half the size. So, whatever. Claim what you want. We don't care. You can't play with the big boys. Stay down there in Texas. I don't care. But anyhow, Bailey Yard originally was established or discovered, or however you want to put it, by General Grenville Dodge back in 1865. He was on a scouting mission for the U.S. Army, looking for a place to put a cavalry post to protect the settlers that were coming out this way. And we kind of suspect he might have been moonlighting for Union Pacific at the time, hence Bailey Yard. But he found a perfect location for this yard. It's between two major water sources, North and South Platte Rivers, and good weather, flat ground, and pretty much right in the middle of the country, or at least the country as they knew it back then. So it was a perfect place for it. And it's basically still is today. Now this is a classification yard, which means that we don't build trains do not originate here. We don't nothing gets loaded here. We have no industries bringing their products here to be shipped off. Everything we deal with, our trains are en route from one location to another. Now, one thing that's important to understand is the different kinds of trains that we run through here. There's essentially two types. You have your manifest, and then your what we call unit trains or bulk commodity trains. Now, the manifest trains are the ones you see that are probably most common for most people. They got different kinds of cars on them. They have some tank cars, they have some box cars, maybe they have some auto racks, things like that. So there's a variety of cars on them. Those are just hauling general products. Pretty much everything that you folks might have on your person right now, most likely at one point in time was on a train. So we haul everything that it takes to run America on a daily basis. And those are your manifest trains. Now those trains, when you look at those, not all those cars that are on that train are going to the same final destination. They just happen to be on that train because they are on one leg of their destination. So what will happen is maybe that train originates in, let's say, the Port of Los Angeles, and maybe hits an industry on the way, and they ship it, and it comes up here to Denver, and then it ends up here in North Platte. Well, once it gets here, that train, as it is at that point, ceases to exist. So, excuse me. Because once he gets here in North Platte, we're going to tear that train apart. So what we do is we separate that train, we separate all those cars and we reclassify it and switch it out based on what its destination is. And we do that via what we call the hump system. We have two humps here in North Platte's Bailey Yard. And as you'll kind of figure out as the tour goes on, we pretty much have two of everything here. One's not enough apparently. If we have an east something, we have a west something. Unfortunately, there's no north and south in this yard. Everything's based on east and west. So if you're a north or south kind of person, you better get used to east. If we have to go north, we call it west. Don't ask me why. That's just the way railroad does things. But anyhow, so what will happen is the way the humps work is the train will come up, will park itself in what we call receiving tracks. And once the crew departs, we have the carmen will get on there, they'll drain all the air out of that train, out the air brake system, so there's no air left in there. And then we have a remote control locomotive, which you guys will probably see a few of those on this tour. Those remote control locomotives are all the switch jobs here in North Platte, or remote control. So if you see a locomotive running around with blinking lights on the top, blinking yellow lights or orange lights, that's a remote control locomotive, and the control operator on that may or may not be on the head end. He or she may be as far as 2 miles away from that, operating that locomotive. So all our switching jobs here are via remote. So they'll tack on to one end of that train, and in the case of the west hump, they pull it to the west, what we call a pullback track, and then they start, once it clears to that track, they'll start shoving it up to a hill. And that's all a hump is a hill. Once those cars get up to the apex of that hill, that trainman, he's also the guy that's controlling that locomotive that's shoving that train. So he's got full control over everything up there, he or she. And as those cars come up, there's a board up there that tells him or her how many cars are going to come down the hill at that time. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Normally they won't let more than 4 cars go down the hump. So he or she does is make that circle, pull a pin, 1 car goes down, 4 cars go down, however many, until all the cars on that train are in the bowl. Now, when those cars are going down into the bowl tracks, they're all going to different rails. So if you think about what a bowl track is, think about a tree laying on its side. It's got one main trunk that goes down, then normally it splits into two branches. And those each one of those branches splits into 2 branches, and it just exponentially grows from there. So on the west hump, we have, I believe it's 50 tracks at the west hump. At the east hump, they split into 64 tracks. So a lot of tracks, and each one of those rails has a destination. Might be Council Bluffs, might be North Little Rock, might be Houston, Texas, Minneapolis, wherever. But all the cars in that rail, for the most part, will be for that destination. Once they're all done, once the tracks are full, or once they got enough for specific trains, on the other end of those tracks is a switch crew that gather those tracks up. They pull them, they double one track to another, to another, to another, pull it down, and there's a new train. And it's a brand new train symbol, a new other crew, and it takes it to the next step of the journey. They'll go to another classification yard, and the same thing will happen over again. So that's basic operations of what we do here at the yard. Now, we accomplished that basically in 2 ways. We have the 2 humps. The west hump handles our westbound traffic. The eastbound handles our eastbound traffic. They both do it pretty much the same way, just different directions. Although they hump the cars in the same direction. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. That's kind of strange how that happens. But anyhow, within this yard is actually big enough to where we actually have 7 smaller yards in it. So each one of our 7 yards has its own specific job to do. No 2 jobs are the same. So by everybody doing their job together, we actually managed to build trains out of here. So by listening to it, it sounds like a mess, but it's actually well organized and it actually works really well. We can process upwards of 130 plus trains a day in this yard if we need to. So we handle on a regular basis about 10,000 rail cars a day, and so that's the bulk of the nation's traffic. That's why Bailey Yard is so big. 8 miles from east to west, 2 miles from north to south, encompassing 2,850 acres. There's a lot of room in this yard. A lot of people in a hurry today. Where's the state patrol when you need them, huh? So, now folks, while I'm up here talking, if you have a question at any time, please raise your hand, because if you don't, I will just keep up here running my mouth until somebody has a question. That could get long and boring. Yes?
Yeah.
Need to be classified. And those are trains that have the same originating point and the same destination. So all they do is make a loop. So there's no reason to need to tear those trains apart and reclassify them. So we have a special facility to expedite their movement of those trains, to get them in and out of here as fast as we can. We have the run-throughs that do that, and we'll be seeing one of those here shortly. Actually, we're actually going to see both of them here this afternoon. But the now back with the hump systems, got just made his hook or made his joint right there. So they coupled up to each other. Now what they'll do is they'll make the train line or the air hoses together. They'll make sure they got air throughout the rest of the train. And he'll do whatever he's going to do, whether he's switching out some bad order cars or if they're getting ready to depart. Well, actual trains. Okay, so when I made the comment, we service about 135, upwards of 139 trains a day. Okay, that's locomotives, cars, however many cars are on those trains. So, give it just a second, buddy. So that could, as far as car-wise go, that could be an incredible amount of cars. So don't get confused with railroad terminology, because you might have 25 locomotives coupled up to each other moving around, and that's just what we call light power. We're just moving. Moving locomotives, that's what really, you put one car on one locomotive and now you got a train. So railroad terminology kind of screws people up once in a while. It does. I've been out here 25 years and still messes me up too. So, yes sir, you got a question? Okay, question up front is about DPU locomotives. What a DPU locomotive is you guys have probably seen where you're waiting on a train and it'll have one or two locomotives up front, and maybe one or two in the middle, and a couple, maybe three on the rear end of it. Well, anything that's behind the lead locomotives is called distributed power, or DPU. Now, what those locomotives are is that helps the engineer control the in-train forces, and actually it helps conserve fuel too, because you're not just relying solely on the head-end locomotives to pull that train. You've got other helper locomotives, so none of them are working as hard. It's just two or three on the head end. Now the engineer on those DPUs can control every one of those locomotives independently of itself. He can either do what they call put up a fence, and those locomotives can mirror image whatever it is that he's doing on the head end. They'll do the exact same thing, or he can run them independently. He can have more power in the middle, putting on brakes on the rear end, and maybe brakes in the head end. However he or she needs to do it, depending on the train they're traveling on. So it's pretty neat technology. Okay, now the cars that you're looking off here, off to the right-hand side. Okay, these are cars waiting. They're already freshly built trains. These trains probably a couple hours ago were at the East Hump. They're rolling down the hump, and now they've been put into a new train that's going to continue on west. East. So east out of North Platte, we travel as far as Council Bluffs, Iowa, and Marysville, Kansas. That's as far east as we go from here. We can't go any further. So that's a federal regulation and seniority regulations for unions and everything. Real complex mess. But that's our limits from there. Westwards, we go as far as Cheyenne, Wyoming, and South Morrill, Nebraska. That's as far as we can go west out of here. Marysville, Kansas, those are the farthest places we can go. So Marysville, Kansas, Council Bluffs, Iowa, or Missouri Valley, it's basically the same place. Everything in between. Yeah, we'll just kind of go in reverse what we're going to do. So the big brown building we just passed right over here, that's the head shed or the yard office. That's where the superintendents work, senior managers. Basically, that's where all the power structure runs. Or works in that office, or works in that building. I got my little office in there someplace. I'm trying to hide out so nobody sees me in there. So, off here to the right, you see all the locomotives we have here. Now, these are all locomotives. They're waiting to go into our diesel shop. Our diesel shop probably processes well over 750 locomotives a year. They are capable of doing virtually anything that needs to be done to a locomotive outside of warranty work. They can do structural work. They can replace the diesel engines in there, the generators, the electric generators in there, the traction motors. Well, the only thing I don't think they can do in there is paint them, and they don't clean them either. But outside of that, they can do everything else. They, on average, they process maybe upwards of, they can process upwards of 75 per day. They come in here for various things. This is actually one of the largest diesel facility in the UP system, probably in the United States. So they can come in here for everything. They come in here to get their oil check, regular maintenance, or major overhauls. So they come in here for a variety of reasons. But all these locomotives here that we just passed, they're all waiting to get inside for various reasons. On the other side are completed locomotives. So they've been worked, they're getting ready to get shipped out on trains or back in the yard for switchers, things like that. So the maintenance schedule on locomotives is totally dependent on what they're doing. So how many miles they've traveled, how many hours. As far as education goes for an engineer, there's no special like college or anything like that. You don't have to go get a master's degree or bachelor's degree to be an engineer. We promote from within. So if you're a trainman like myself and you want to go into engine service, you can be selected for engine service and take your training that way. And it's about a 3-month training program to be that. And it's all in-house. So there's really no specialized training on the outside per se. You need to qualify for it. Yeah, and here on the other side of the shop, these locomotives here are all waiting to get back on trains again. So hopefully what we'll do. Okay, now we were talking earlier about humping cars, and this is what you see up in front of us here. These are eastbound cars. The tracks that we just saw as we were driving down that long road over there, that's where these cars came from. They come down the east hump here and into the east bowl, and the crew on the other side gathers them up, doubles up the tracks, and takes them down and builds a new train. So now, as you can see, once that pinner up at the top releases that pin, those cars just start, Mother Nature takes over, and it's all gravity that pulls them down the hill. But unfortunately, we can't rely on Mother Nature to help us out all the time and do everything for us, although it'd be nice. We do have to worry about what we call, after the pin is pulled, the most important thing is what we call a distance to couple. Yeah, just straight up. Yeah. So that distance to couple, what that is the distance from wherever the car is located to how far it is before it meets the next car in the bowl, or for its destination rail. So what happens is as that car is going down, we already know what the weight is, what the product is, where it's going, and how far it has to go. And this is all computerized. There's a series of radar guns that are on that car that are monitoring the speed, and it's calculating how hard it's going to, how fast it's going to be when it hits that next car in the rail or couples up to it. The goal is to make sure they don't couple up at greater than 2 miles per hour. So what happens is it's going down, and naturally in weather like this, it's going to pick up speed because the hot weather keeps everything lubricated real well. Yeah, this is good here, Rich. It's going to keep everything lubricated real well, so it's going to flow really nice down this hill. So we have to be able to slow it down. That sound you hear is us slowing those cars down. That's called the retarders. Now, just think of kind of like disc brakes. This is a great way of looking at it. If you look immediately off to your left here, right on the ground, these are the retarders that were replaced about a year ago. And all they're doing is, as that car is determined that car needs to slow down, they just squeeze in on those wheels and slow it down. So as those cars are going down, there's two sets of those retarders. So we have two opportunities to slow it down. So it takes over, and then after it gets by the second one, you'll see it's just barely rolling a lot of times. Well, the bowl tracks, the reason they're called bowl tracks is they're shaped like a bowl. So they don't really have to be going very fast. They're just naturally going to roll on their own weight into gravitate towards the center of that bowl. So that's how the hump system works. Now all these cars here, as you can imagine, there's a ton of switches out there. It's constantly being switched from one track to another and rerouting cars and the retarders. None of that's operated by electricity. That's all pneumatic. So it's all air powered. These blue hoses and tubes you see over here, that's all air lines. So that's all air powered. So needless to say, you really can't go down to Ace Hardware and get your 33-gallon air compressor and probably power those humps. It's going to take something a little bit bigger. And we'll see that here in just a second. Let's go ahead and move our way around.
Your tower still active? Are the hump towers still active, or is everything computerized now?
Everything's computerized. That used to be our hump tower, where we used to have retarder operators up there that would actually manually slow those cars down. It's all computerized now. Now, as I said, everything is pneumatically operated, so we need a huge volume of air, and we're not going to get that via, your little air compressors that we all like to fill our cars up with. This building off here, where these blue containers are, these blue coils, that whole building is a gigantic air compressor. There's 3 or 4 diesel engines in there. That's all they do is they pump air to power this up. We have 2 of these because, remember, we have 2 humps. So we have 2 of these stations. We also have to remember that when your tire's low on your pickup, do not fill it up here. This is not a good place. Your road warranty or your road hazard warranty will not cover this kind of incident. I promise you. Don't ask me how I know this. Most likely we did. I'm sure we did. You did it. So, could be. Not that I know of. No, nobody that I know of, anyhow. Yeah, well, they either confirm or deny that somebody did that one time. So now this hump here, this is our east hump. At one time, this was the largest hump in the United States. I don't know if it still is or not. Current height of this hump is 34 feet from ground level up to the top of the hump, to the actual hump platform itself. It is due for a retrofit. I don't know if they're going to change the height of it or not, so we'll see what happens. But they hump. The goal is to hump approximately 700 cars per shift. So Bailey Yard works in 3 shifts. We're scheduled for 8 hours, and we work 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. No holidays, no nothing stops operations here. It doesn't matter, we work in all weather conditions. It doesn't matter whether it's raining or snowing, blowing, doesn't matter. Volcanoes, no problem. Meteor storms, no problem. We're going to work in them. Doesn't matter. Well, when we retrofit the hump, I'm sure the question is, what are we going to do with those cars? The west hump is set up the same direction as this one is. So they'll probably do split shifts or something like that. I don't know how that'll work out. So it'll be, but then again, who knows when it's going to happen, because that thing's needed retrofitted since I've been hired on, and I've been here 25 years. So we'll see if it actually happens. Yeah, you got it. It needs to be upgraded and some serious maintenance done. I think the OSHA or whatever powers the STB, I think consider that to be a bridge, so it has to fall under the bridges standard. That's way over my pay grade. So, way over my pay grade. Okay, we were talking about unit trains earlier. This facility you see up to your front here, this yellow facility, this is what we call our eastbound run through, and this is what facilitates the rapid movement of those trains. Now we do have, the goal is just to get these trains in and out here as fast as possible, because there's no reason to delay them because they don't need to be classified. So what will happen is the oncoming crew or the offgoing crew parks the train here, they secure the train, they get off, and once they get off, the mechanical forces, the car forces can get on that train, and they can do all the whatever maintenance to be done, if they can do it in the rail, all the inspections, make sure all the air brakes are working properly, they can refuel it, resand it, clean it up, and get ready for the next crew to get back on it. So on average, turnaround time stop to start again is usually about 5 hours, sometimes a little bit more, but start to finish, about 5 hours. As opposed to a car that has to be classified, will on average spend 12, maybe up as long as 24 hours in North Platte before it's gone again. But we are bringing that time down dramatically. Now we do use a little bit of diesel fuel in this facility. With these two tanks over here, you see the one on the right is our general storage tank. The one on the left, the blue one, is actually what we draw from to refuel locomotives. So we do have our own pipeline that diesel fuel is pumped into us. So it's not really practical for us to try to bring it in here any other way. Even via train, we would never be able to supply this place with as much diesel as it needs. Now on the left-hand side over here, the old fueling rack, where you see that little wall there, we do have a lot of fuel trucks here in the yard, as you can see. Now we use fuel trucks because the head-end power most times is on a rack. Like these run through, the head-end power's up there. It's not really practical to pull that train down, and if you have a DPU in the middle of it, stop it where it's on the rack and fuel that up, and then stop it again, for the rear ends to be on there. That's pretty impractical. So we have fuel trucks that will bring the fuel to those other locomotives on the train. Okay, these tracks over here, off to your left-hand side, this is where they park the trains that are getting ready to go over the East Hump, be reclassified. The one they're humping right now, as you can see, is the one that's moving there. There's the locomotive, you really can't see it right now, but it's all the way on the west end of this train. So the remote operator is on the top of the hump over there. So that's about a good mile, maybe more, from there to where that locomotive is. And he or she's the one that's controlling it. And they can do anything else, for the most part, that a locomotive engineer can do. They can stop it, they can make it go faster, make it go slower, they can apply the brakes, they can do whatever they need to with that thing.
Question for you.
Question up here up front, what's the typical length of a train? And that used to be an easy question, but now it's not quite so easy. Because right now we're in the process of doubling up trains as they leave here. So as we double them up, they're obviously getting longer. So a lot of your coal trains that used to be 125 cars for one train might be 250 cars by the time it leaves here. And from what I understand, there's plans on running those trains even longer. So if you get frustrated being stopped at a crossing, waiting for trains now, you're going to be really disappointed here in the near future. No, we don't do 1 minute. We don't want to talk about that. Yes.
1 million car.
Supposedly it's more proficient to run that. I don't know. I have personal ideas on that, but it's not appropriate for discussion like this. So. Okay, once we get up to the top of the, we'll have to pull over here for this bridge. We'll get up here to the top of this bridge and we'll stop up there in the middle of that. It's a pretty good opportunity to take some pictures left to right, and we do have a coal train parked over here, so it gives you a pretty unique perspective of these trains. you'll be able to see a coal train or a unit train from the top down. And you see just exactly how long it is because you'll be able to see the head end down here and the tail end back there. And just kind of imagine that times 2. Because most likely before that, when that leaves, we're going to double it up to another train like that. And we'll also get to be able to see the east and west limits of North Platte at Bailey Yard here. Yes, sir.
On the hump, what happens if you guys get a bad pin?
Excuse me?
If you guys are running remote engine, what happens up there if they can't get the pin?
Then he can stop it and give it a bump or straighten it out. I mean, there's techniques to do that to get that pin if it won't pull up.
Climb over and pull the other one.
And sometimes you have to pull it back and get to the other side and pull it from the other knuckle. So. We have somebody have a question up front here? Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
On the recent backlog of
The question is that with the backlog of the trains, like outside the ports of entry, Los Angeles and so forth, did that affect our trains through here? It probably did to a degree, but we don't do a lot of intermodal traffic through here. Most of that traffic goes down through the southern route, although we are starting to see a lot more of it now. So I don't think it affected us directly that bad. It may have down south though. You got a question? Yes, and it's not if, we do double up these trains. Yeah, we do this. We'll do that on the way down. Okay, yeah, we got somebody behind us, so what we'll do is we're gonna come back this way. So we'll stop when we can because we have somebody behind us. We don't want to stop anybody from getting to work. We get in trouble if we do that. Now there's brown. Well, we might be screwed in here.
In the mall.
We always got one bus where you have these problems. So. Well, he's moving, so he might be sure. Now this brown building you see up front here. This is not a Union Pacific building. That building was originally built by General Electric, and back in mid 2000s, 2005, 6, that time period, we were running a lot of coal trains through here. It was almost like it was going out of style. We were forced to buy a lot of brand new locomotives, and consequently, when you buy a locomotive that's brand new, it's like when you buy a new Dodge Ram. It has recalls, it has warranty work that only the dealer can do. Only the problem with those is it's a lot worse when it's a locomotive. So consequently, what would have to happen was things that can come out of there with all that horsepower in that building. So that's kind of why we call it Area 50. So whichever one you want to believe, totally up to you. I know my comedic skills aren't all that good, so. Yes, that's the safe haven that's where the managers hang out to protect themselves from training. So that is where the managers hang out there. They call it the bunker. They figured if they got an Area 51, they need a bunker. So that's them being funny, not me. So unfortunately, we can't really see what we're hoping to see here. But on the other side of this train here, we do have actually one of, if not the last, fully functional caboose in the UP system. And we use that in the winter time. We do get some, once in a while we'll get some nasty storms west of North Platte to where it's not practical to get a crew wagon out there, even in a four-wheel drive vehicle, to relieve our crews. So what we'll do is we'll take a locomotive and put it on either side of the caboose. We'll put the relief crews in that caboose, take them out there and relieve those crews with those guys and bring them back. A setup like that, those guys, those things can go through some snow banks, snow drifts and everything. It's actually a pretty neat thing if anybody's ever seen a a train or a locomotive go through a snowbank at like 60 miles an hour. It's like an explosion of snow. It's really neat. Question by the back?
You guys call them snow shuttles?
What's that?
What do you guys designate them? Snow shuttles?
No, that was the Blizzard bus.
Blizzard bus?
Yeah, Blizzard bus.
I've heard different names for it.
Yeah, it's the one we got here has always been called the Blizzard bus. That's all I've ever heard it called.
In a mall.
Okay, on the back side over here, we're like we talked about earlier, we're just Bailey Yard is starting to get a little more intermodal traffic than we've had in the past. So we've got a yard over here dedicated to intermodal traffic. We have cars that are in transit from one area to another, so that we can put on trains. Most of those are cars that got repaired at the car shop and need to get on another train, so that we store them over here until we can get them on one to get to the next destination. So, but we are there. I know there's plans to build some kind of intermodal and possibly even an automotive loading facility here. I don't know whether that'll happen while I'm still employed, but probably in the near future we may see something like that. Okay. I've seen a deer yet. Yes, ma'am. What advice do I have for a young person considering a career on the railroad? I would say make sure that whatever you follow your interests, whatever it is you're interested in. If you're a mechanically inclined person, you start looking at the diesel shop mechanics, boilermaker possibly, things like that. If you're an outdoorsy type person, maybe consider train service. I wasn't joking when I said we do work in all weather conditions out here. I mean, and there's a lot of one of my jobs is I train new hires out here. And you would be amazed, I get that same species of new hires that we work in all weather conditions, volcanoes, asteroid storms, things like that. And you would not believe how many people say, yeah, that's just rhetoric. And then next thing you know, we got a tornado out here and we're working in it. Okay, we do work in those conditions. If you're not prepared to do that, find something else. If you've got the aptitude, maybe some college background I want, there's tons of management positions in Omaha for virtually Union Pacific is very tech savvy. And they have a lot of high-tech. On the other side, that bridge you see there about 3/4 of a mile away, that's our western limit. So that all that in between is Bailey Yard. And you'll never get in a position where you're going to see north and south. It's just like this. But we're 2 miles. We're basically in the center of the yard, and access-wise right now between north and south. Yeah, let's go ahead and keep going. Maybe hit that turnout on the bottom of there. We had a massive tire replacement process going here in the yard. They made a bunch of brand new ties and replaced a bunch over here in the yard. And they've turned some of them into concrete. So we're working with a lot of concrete ties right now. Average lifespan, from what I hear on these wood ties, is between 30 to 40 years, maybe give or take, depending on what it's used for. These concrete ties are supposed to last a minimum of 50 years and longer. I did hear rumor that they're coming out with some kind of plastic tie that's supposed to last a minimum, guaranteed, to 100 years. I don't think I'm going to be around to test that theory, but some of you might. It's hard to say, but that's all right. The old wood ties are huge demand for them. Yeah, landscapers are climbing all over themselves trying to get them old ties. we used to be able to get them when they'd had piles of ties like that. Go talk to the engineering guy. He'd give you a chit, and you go fill up your pickup with those things. Nowadays they're bought before they're even pulled off the tracks, so we can't even do that anymore. So, which is pretty bad. We used to make some really nice retaining walls. There's our remote control locomotive. You see the blinking lights up top. Okay. There may, like I said, there may or may not be somebody on that one. Most likely there's not. Okay, we made the switch to remote control locomotives back in 2003. So and that technology came in fast. It was like one day we had engineers in the yard, next day the engineers are gone, we're all on the road. So yes, it did come in literally that fast. So the way technology moves, it's you better embrace it because you can't fight it. It's going to happen. You can hear the retard, everybody can hear that. If you can't, you shouldn't be on this bus. Now this road here kind of bisects our yard in half. There's really not a lot on this. There is one key point of interest all the way down the end. That's kind of why we're going down this way. Hopefully you folks will find it really interesting. The first tracks off to our left here, these three here, these are actually mainline tracks. So these tracks here will take you from Chicago, Illinois, all the way to Eagle, Oregon, if you follow. And believe it or not, we get a lot of people trying to do just that. They want to follow a track till it stops. Well, I hate to tell them, there's no place that actually stops. So this is the end of the line. So it just loops around and goes back the other way. So you might be walking a while. Up there to the front, and off to your left-hand side, that's our west hump over there. It operates the same way the east hump does. It is kind of humorous. When I first hired on, I was talking to one of the maintenance. Yeah, those yellow cars over there, those are actually, well, the big ones are auto racks. So we do haul automobiles in those. The flat ones are the intermodal cars. They hold the intermodal containers on those. So when I say intermodal, those containers you see on ships, that's what goes on those cars. There's our big, they call that thing Air Force One, but it's not actually Air Force One. That's like a huge vacuum cleaner. We use those to clean out between the tracks, especially in the bolt tracks, because a lot of material gets kind of seeps through the cracks of cars, grain, sometimes soda ash, things like that. And so we use that big vacuum cleaner to literally suck it up and get it out of there. It used to be years ago, we used to haul so much soda ash through here that in the bowls, the tracks were just between the rails was pure white soda ash. And if you would have the wind just right and the barometric conditions just right, you would have a soda ash storm out here. And it looked just like a fog storm or a snowstorm. And the bad thing is if you're sweating and you got soda ash on you, it tends to bleach out clothes and it tends to make your skin burn and itch, and yeah, it's miserable. So really got that. That's probably one of the best things that we've done in recent years is get those big vacuum cleaners out there to clean that up. Now the tracks we're looking at over here on the left, those are trains that they're getting ready to go over the west hump. So those, unlike the east hump where they just have to tack on to the west end of it and shove them to the hill, these ones they have to tack on the west end and pull them down and then shove them to the hill. So it's a little bit different setup. And why it's different, I really don't know. It's probably just the way it's easier for westbound traffic to park like that than it is to try to park on the other side like that. Yeah, it's downhill too. All the way up towards the front there, you see a building up there with the open doors. That's our car repair facility. We call it the One Spot. It's kind of a mirror image of the shop, of the diesel shop, except for it doesn't deal with locomotives, it deals with cars. And anything that needs done with a car can be done at that shop. They can do structural work, they can do body work, they can repair, replace, or fix air brake systems. They change out a lot of wheel sets. On average, we will change upwards and over 10,000 sets of wheels a year. You'll see a lot of those wheels sitting out here. Okay, does everybody see the auto rack up there that's looks like it's seen better days up here on the front? That about a year or so ago, there was about 8 Tesla vehicles in there, and it caught fire. Yeah, they're probably still fighting with Tesla over who's paying for that stuff. Oh yeah. Well, the North Platte Fire Department learned how difficult it is to put a fire out like that too. So it was a learning point for a lot of people. No, and to this day, I don't know if anybody knows what started that fire or not. So, nope, you're preaching the choir there. But these cars here that we're seeing here on the left side of the shop, or on the west side of the shop, these have been through this repair shop, so they're ready to go. We'll be putting them on trays probably within the next 24 to 48 hours. A lot of their spare parts, a lot of knuckles, a lot of drawbars. And up here you'll see we got a lot of sets of wheels up here.
Car repair.
We go through our wheel sets here. Once we're done with them, we don't just discard the wheels once we can't use them anymore. And wheels get changed for a variety of reasons. They might be what we call out of round. So you can imagine steel wheels and steel rails, all those forces working together, they're going to wear down those wheels most likely in a weird way. Sometimes they start to get into a hole pattern and things like that. So once they get out of round, we can ground them down a little bit to make them round again, but there's a certain tolerance they have to be in to where we have to ship them off to be repaired. And what they do is they reforge them. So they reforge them or recast them. They put new bearings in them and ship them back to us. We just keep reusing them and reusing them. Oh, there's a bunch of places that do that with the wheels. We used to have one right up here in Hershey, and I don't know why it closed down, but it's closed. It's an abandoned factory now. So all these cars here are all waiting to go in. If you can see the little orange piece of paper, kind of like a little frame on the end zone. Those are what we call bad odor tags. That tells your train crews or whoever is dealing with that car, that the carman have determined that car to be not in working order. Everything that leaves Bailey Yard has to be 100% compliant. Everything has to function. 100% of the air brakes have to work. Unlike smaller terminals, they could get away with having 90% of working air brakes. We have to have 100% of everything is operational when it leaves here. If it's not, we remove it until it's repaired. Here's another remote control locomotive here. So they're the ones shoving these guys in, all these bad odor cars in, or some bad odors in. Okay, now this big brown building up here, this elongated one with the wheel defect detector. This building is unique to Bailey Yard. You'll never see this building anyplace else in the world. This is the only place that it is. And we developed this technology back in about 2006 or 2007. Okay, we're gonna have to turn around up here. So if you need me to get out and do a ground guide, let me know. Yeah, let's do it, because I don't want anything to happen. Okay, folks, I'm gonna have to get out and ground guide here for just a second, and then I'll be back in, and we'll finish the conversation with this. It's kind of a neat story with this building.